Good morning, friends. Today is the first Sunday of Advent, and the word Advent comes from the Latin verb advenire, which means to come toward, to draw near, to approach. And if we are young or young at heart, the first Sunday of Advent is exciting because it's a reminder that Christmas is drawing near. Christmas Day is approaching. Christmas is coming towards us, one could say. And if we have our own Advent calendar, the first little window has possibly been opened already, with the first little chocolate having been eaten. From a slightly more religious perspective, during Advent we remember and celebrate God's drawing near to us in the person of Jesus Christ. As we celebrate his birth on Christmas Day, the one who is called Emmanuel, God with us. Traditionally, on the first Sunday of Advent, it has been an opportunity to reflect on the theme of the second coming of Christ and that wonderful hope of the final victory of God's love, when God will be all and in all, and when all things will be made new. Now, the lectionary passages for this Sunday all pick up this theme. In Matthew's Gospel, the key verse for today is verse 42. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come. In the reading from Romans 13, Paul picks up the same theme. He says, you know the time has come. You must wake up now. Our salvation is nearer than it was when we first came to believe. The night is almost over, he says. It will be daylight soon. Let us give up the deeds of darkness and live as people of the daytime, as people of the light. Now, the Apostle Paul clearly believed that the second coming of Jesus, of Christ, would happen in his own lifetime. And so, in a literal sense, we need to admit that Paul was wrong. But perhaps in a mystical sense, his words still ring true. Whenever we choose to live as people of the day, as people of the light, Christ comes again into the world. It reminds me of a saying of a Jewish saying, which says, "Do a good deed. For every time you do a good deed, the Messiah, the Christ, comes one step closer to the world." It's a little saying that reminds us that however we may interpret the second coming of Christ, and there may be people who interpret that in different ways, what it is ultimately about is the victory of God's goodness and love. And every good deed that is done in the world is another small victory in God's kingdom of love. In our passage from Isaiah today, we get one of the earliest Jewish visions of the victory of God's love in the world. The passage was written in the period about 750 to 700 years before Christ. It was a time of great uncertainty for the people of Judah. The great Assyrian army had already destroyed, devastating the northern kingdom of Israel, perhaps a little bit like Putin's Russia has devastated eastern Ukraine. The Assyrian Empire remained a constant threat to the little kingdom of Judah in the south that was left. And in the midst of these dangerous and uncertain times, the prophet Isaiah has a vision of a world of the future in which God's love and goodness is finally victorious. He imagines a scene where the small and vulnerable city of Jerusalem, this threatened city, has become the great center for the outpouring of God's love and goodness in the world. In the days to come, he says, the mountain of the temple of the Lord shall tower above the mountains and be lifted higher than the hills. All the nations will stream to it. People without number will come to it and will say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, that he may teach us his ways." Swords will be hammered into plowshares and spears into sickles. Nation will not lift sword against nation. There will be no more training for war. And with this vision of the future, of a world that has been healed and made whole, the prophet Isaiah encourages the people into a new way of living in the present, as he concludes with these words, O house of Jacob, come, let us walk in the light. And so the vision of the final victory of God in the future is meant to inspire us to walk in the light of God's goodness in the present, to do our little bit to bring light and healing into the world. Some Christians don't feel we should be caring about the environmental crisis that is upon us, because with the second coming of Christ, they say everything will be sorted. And so they say it doesn't really matter how we treat God's gift of the earth in the present. Now, I think there's great danger in such attitudes, and I think they're incorrect. I would be far happier with the approach of the first century Jewish sage, Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, who once said, if you should happen to be holding a sapling in your hand, when they tell you that the Messiah has arrived, first plant the sapling, and then go out and greet the Messiah. In other words, from a Christian perspective, be careful about getting drawn too quickly into claims that the second coming is just around the corner. Go and plant a tree first, and then go and greet the Messiah. Let's be careful of being so heavenly minded that we end up being no earthly good. Let us nurture with love and care the life and this world that is here in front of us, for this too is the great work of God. And with every loving and caring action towards each other and towards God's creation, with every sapling that is planted, the Messiah, the Christ, comes one step closer to the world. Amen. And God bless you as you continue to think and ponder on these things. Amen.